Imagine planting a tree with all the love in the world. You nurture it, water it, and protect it from wind and storm. But one day, when that tree grows strong, its branches strike you, and its roots seem to pull away. How is it possible that something you nurtured with so much sacrifice now ignores you, belittles you, or even makes you feel worthless? The truth is harsh but must be faced. A child who doesn't respect their mother didn't become that way overnight. Something happened along the way, something you may have unknowingly allowed, something life taught them without your awareness. And if you don't understand it today, it may continue to cause pain. This message is not about blame but clarity, and more importantly, about giving you the tools to reclaim your dignity. From understanding why giving too much can sometimes lead to receiving less, to the hardest but most freeing truth, how to stop expecting what may never come and start living for yourself. I'm Gabriel, and what you're about to hear could reshape how you see your relationship with your child, but only if you stay with me until the end. If a child doesn't respect their mother, is it the fault of the mother, the child, or life itself? The easy response is to blame youth, society, or human ingratitude, but comfort doesn't lead to truth. Respect is not a right that comes automatically. It is cultivated, or it is lost. And often, it fades in ways we don't notice, in small gestures, in silent moments where boundaries should have been, in sacrifices made out of love that quietly pave the road to indifference. We are not born knowing how to be parents. Motherhood is a battlefield where every choice carries consequences that only become clear over time. And one day, when you expect to harvest the gratitude and respect you thought you planted, you're met with a child who no longer listens, who speaks to you with distance, or worse, who ignores you as if you were invisible. Then comes the painful question: when was the respect lost? Like an old house that once stood strong and proud, time wears it down. The roof leaks, the wood weakens, and cracks form in the walls. At first, they are barely noticeable, but one day, the whole structure trembles and collapses. Respect erodes. In the same way, not in a single moment, but through a silent, gradual process. Perhaps it was when you overlooked that first act of disrespect, hoping it was just a phase, or when you gave in to their demands without ever asking for anything in return. Maybe it was the fear of losing their love that made you tolerate words and behaviors you once would have never accepted. Marcus Aurelius once said, "We must live according to the nature of things, not the illusions we wish to believe." And the nature of respect is clear. It cannot be forced. It's earned through firm boundaries, by example, and through the quiet dignity of someone who doesn't plead for love, but commands it through presence and self-worth. Sadly, many mothers grow up believing that love must be unconditional, even to the point of total self-erasure, as if motherhood meant giving everything and expecting nothing. But true respect doesn't come from endless sacrifice. It comes from balance, from giving, yes, but also from valuing yourself. Today, I ask you, how many times have you allowed yourself to be spoken to with disdain without responding? How many times have you felt as though your time had no value? How many times have you swallowed your tears in silence, thinking it was better to stay quiet, to avoid pushing your child even further away? If you believe that giving in and waiting is the solution, you're mistaken. Respect that has been lost cannot be regained through patience alone, but through clarity and courage. The first step is recognizing that the house may be crumbling, but you can still reinforce the foundations. Life has given you years of wisdom, experience, and strength. Don't let fear of loneliness or guilt prevent you from claiming what is rightfully yours. This isn't just about your child respecting you because they should. It's about you remembering that you deserve respect. And when you do, when you find the courage to change the dynamic, you may be surprised to see that even the most twisted tree can begin to straighten its branches. If respect is lost when too many things are silently tolerated, the next mistake is even harder to recognize because on the surface, it looks like love. But let's not fool ourselves. When you give too much, you often end up receiving less. It may sound unfair, even contradictory, but it's a reality many mothers face without knowing how to break the cycle. Imagine a fountain that never stops, flowing. At first, those around it drink from it with gratitude, appreciating its generosity. But over time, routine turns that gratitude into entitlement. No one pauses to admire it anymore. It simply becomes part of the background. What was once a gift turns into an unspoken obligation, an invisible presence only noticed when the water stops flowing. This is what happens to many mothers who give endlessly, believing that unconditional love means total self-sacrifice, expecting nothing in return. But when everything is given without boundaries, what you receive in return is often indifference. Women of your generation were taught that a mother who thinks of herself is selfish, that a good mother always puts her children first, that her happiness depends entirely on theirs. But what happens when those children grow up and don't return that love with the same care? What happens when life goes on and you suddenly realize you've spent decades ensuring their happiness while forgetting that you too deserve more than the role of endless giver? Seneca once said, "He who gives without measure receives not gratitude, but demands." And that is the truth. When you teach someone to receive without effort, without responsibility, and without reciprocity, you stop being seen as someone worthy of appreciation. You become part of their emotional furniture, not because you chose it, but because that's human nature. What comes easily becomes invisible. What is constant stops being valued. What's guaranteed becomes an assumed right. And so, what began as an act of pure love slowly turns into a weakness, a rope your child learns to pull when they need something, but forgets when it's no longer useful. How many times have you said yes when you truly wanted to say no? How often have you put your child's well-being above your own, even when you knew it wasn't fair to yourself? Perhaps you believed that, in time, all your effort would earn respect and gratitude. But now, the truth is clear. Instead of love, you're met with indifference. Instead of recognition, you face demands. Instead of meaningful companionship, you receive hurried visits filled with empty conversations. And here comes the most difficult Stoic truth. You can't control how others see you, but you can control how you give of yourself. This doesn't mean you stop loving your child or close your heart. It means restoring balance. Real, healthy. Love isn't about giving until you're drained. It's about giving with awareness, with self-respect, and with the understanding that you matter too. Imagine this. If one day you became less available, if you set boundaries, if you placed your well-being first, how would the dynamic shift? At first, there might be confusion, even anger, because no one adjusts easily to losing what they once took for granted. But eventually, that shift could spark something deeper. The realization that their mother is not an endless resource, but a person with needs, dreams, and a life of her own. The question is, do you dare? Do you dare to stop giving to the point of disappearing? Do you dare to show that your love, while deep, is also worthy of respect? Because the only way to change this story is to stop writing it with the same old ink. If you keep waiting for respect and gratitude to arrive on their own, you may wait a lifetime. But the real danger in overgiving isn't just their indifference. It's what begins to grow silently inside you. Guilt. And this is where everything starts to shift. Guilt doesn't just make you vulnerable. It keeps you trapped in an endless cycle of sacrifice and disappointment. Since becoming a mother, guilt has lingered for not doing more, not being perfect, for decisions you question in hindsight. But you must understand this. When guilt stops being useful, it becomes a tool of manipulation. It doesn't matter If you're the one feeding it, or if your child, perhaps unconsciously, uses it to keep you in the role of constant emotional provider. A mother who is ruled by guilt rarely sets boundaries, rarely demands respect, and often forgets her worth. And that's when children, even unknowingly, begin to push those limits, because they learn there are no consequences. Statements like, "You were never there enough," or "You made bad decisions," become emotional daggers that make you shrink, second-guess yourself, and keep giving in the hope that someday things will balance out. But that day never arrives, because guilt cannot fix the past, and it cannot build respect in the present. Stoicism teaches that we cannot change what has already happened. We can only choose how we respond now. As Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one." The same is true here. Stop exhausting yourself justifying what you did or didn't do, and begin living with the quiet confidence that you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. You can't rewrite the past, but you can choose how you allow yourself to be treated today. Today, if you feel that guilt has weakened you, there is something you can do starting now. Every time your child or your own mind reminds you of what you didn't do right, respond with a single question. What now? Not what if. Not what should. I have done, but what do I do with this now? And the answer will be clear. Stop waiting for validation. Stop apologizing for every decision, and start moving forward with the certainty that you no longer need to keep paying for mistakes that only life itself could have taught you. Now I want you to tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and write the phrase, "I owe nothing to the past." Because by this point in the video, you already know that guilt can no longer rule your life. And there are still deeper lessons to come, including the final one, which will be the hardest, but also the most liberating. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me, because what's coming next could forever change the way you see your relationship with your child. Guilt can weaken you, yes, but there's something even more dangerous hiding behind it: the fear of loneliness. We've reached the fourth point in this journey, and it's time to confront a truth many people avoid. The fear of loneliness has led you to tolerate too much. It's that quiet internal fear that's made you accept disrespect, justify absences, and remain in a role where you are no longer seen or valued. Because if you're not the always available mother, then who are you? And if you set boundaries, what if your child pulls away even more? These are the thoughts that plague so many mothers, keeping them trapped in unbalanced relationships where respect is sacrificed just to avoid being left behind. But stop and ask yourself, is it truly companionship you have, or only the illusion of it? What does it mean to be accompanied if, deep down, you feel invisible, emotionally used, and reduced to a background role? The worst kind of loneliness isn't when you're physically alone. It's when you're surrounded by people who don't truly value you. And here lies the most dangerous trap. When the fear of losing contact with your child becomes stronger than the desire to be treated with dignity, you begin to negotiate away your own worth. You remain silent when you should speak. You accept treatment you'd never tolerate from anyone else, and you settle for crumbs of affection, telling yourself, "At least they're still in my life." But what's the point of being in someone's life if you're nothing more than a name on a list, someone they contact only when they need something? Stoicism teaches that one of the greatest mistakes is to emotionally depend on what we cannot control. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." And it's that interpretation you must challenge today. Because the fear of loneliness doesn't come from being alone. It comes from the belief that without certain connections, your life has no meaning. But the truth is different. It's not about having people around you at any cost. It's about having relationships that bring value, offer respect, and remind you that you are still worthy of love, care, and dignity. Take a moment and look. at your life honestly. Ask yourself if the fear of loneliness has influenced your choices, if you've held on to relationships that drain you simply because the thought of being alone felt unbearable. Now imagine what would happen if you let go of that fear. What if, instead of clinging to relationships that no longer serve you, you began investing in your own life? New friendships, meaningful activities, and a deeper relationship with yourself. True strength isn't found in accepting the unacceptable just to avoid solitude. It's found in learning to enjoy your own company and knowing you are valuable, not for the role you play in others' lives, but for who you are. You are not here to live in anyone's shadow, to beg for attention, or to sacrifice your dignity in exchange for a few obligatory visits. Life still holds so much for you, but only if you stop begging for what you already deserve by right. Respect, gratitude, and love cannot be demanded. They are inspired by the presence of someone who knows their worth, even in solitude. If the fear of loneliness has made you accept too much, the next truth is even deeper. A child who doesn't respect their mother doesn't respect themselves. This isn't to excuse their behavior, but to understand it. A child who belittles or ignores the woman who gave them life is not at peace. They carry their own wounds, resentments, or unresolved selfishness, but their inner chaos is not your cross to bear. Many mothers fall into the trap of thinking they must rescue their children from themselves, justifying disrespect with the belief that it stems from pain. While that may be true, it doesn't excuse it. Respect is not optional. It's not conditional on their mood, struggles, or finances. If an adult child chooses to treat you with coldness, that is their choice, not their fate. Continuing to tolerate it will only sink you deeper into a relationship where you always lose. And over time, you stop expecting better. You stop hoping for calls, for kindness, for apologies. You begin to believe the most dangerous lie, that you deserve nothing more. But this is where you must pause and ask yourself a vital question. What kind of example am I setting? Because by accepting this treatment, you're teaching your child that it's acceptable. And worse, you're teaching future generations that a mother's love can be endlessly taken without ever being returned. This isn't about begging for recognition. It's about acting with dignity, knowing you are worthy of respect, not just for what you've given, but for who you are. Epictetus once said, "The only things we truly own are our own character and our decisions." You can't force your child to change, but you can change how you respond. You can stop waiting. You can reclaim your space. You can show that your love is strong, but it is not a doormat. If your child doesn't respect themselves, that's their burden, not yours. Your responsibility is your peace, your life, your future. And if that means setting boundaries, stepping back, or even letting go, then so be it. Because respect is never begged for, it's inspired. And to inspire it, you must first respect yourself. If you wait endlessly for your child to change, you may waste your entire life in that waiting. Meanwhile, what happens to you? We've reached the sixth and most difficult point. Gratitude cannot be demanded, but it can be taught. If your child never learned to appreciate you, perhaps it's because there were never consequences for not doing so. Close your eyes and imagine 10 years have passed. You're sitting in the same chair in the same house with the same thoughts. Your child still treats you like a burden, and you're still waiting. But that moment of realization, of remorse, never comes. Because people don't change out of comfort. They change through necessity, through absence, through the loss of what they once took for granted. If you never move, never say enough, never show them that your presence is not a given, then why would they ever change? This is not about cruelty or resentment. It's about showing, with actions and not pleas, that their behavior has a cost. People learn to value what they lose, not what's always there. And if you never set a boundary, never prioritized yourself, never taught them how to treat you, then don't expect them to figure it out on their own. Think of anyone who has lost someone they loved. When did they appreciate them most? Not when they were constantly available, but when they were gone. Many don't recognize love's weight until it's no longer within reach. So yes, it will be uncomfortable. It will be painful. It may feel unnatural, but sometimes silence is the loudest teacher. The real question is, do you have the courage to do it? Because to reclaim your dignity, you must first learn to tolerate the silence, the emptiness that change leaves behind, the discomfort of doing what you've never dared to do. Most mothers never reach this point, not because they don't want to, but because fear holds them back. They choose the familiarity of an unbalanced relationship over the uncertainty of taking a new step. But that fear is only temporary. The regret of doing nothing, however, can last a lifetime. Gratitude cannot be begged for. It is cultivated through absence, through example, and through the quiet firmness of someone who shows that love does not mean enduring everything. The great Stoic lesson here is this: you cannot force anyone to value what they have, but you can decide how much longer you will continue sacrificing your peace for nothing. And that decision is yours alone. If you've made it this far, it's because something deep inside you knows you can't keep living the same way. You've seen how the lack of boundaries has eroded respect, how the fear of loneliness has made you accept the unacceptable, how guilt has worked against you, and how gratitude can only be awakened, never demanded. Now we reach the seventh and final point of this journey, and it's the hardest of all: to stop waiting for something that may never come and finally reclaim yourself. How many more years will you sit in that chair, waiting for a change that never arrives? How many more times will you excuse your child's indifference with reasons like they're just busy, or that's just how life is now, or maybe someday they'll understand? How many more mornings will you wake up with the quiet ache that something is missing, something broke, and you don't know if it can ever be fixed? The truth no one wants to admit is this: not all children change, not all grow, not all mature. In time, and if you keep hinging your peace on the hope that one day they'll wake up and offer the love you deserve, you may end your life trapped in that endless waiting. It's time to make peace with the possibility that recognition may never come. It's time to stop tying your happiness to someone else's behavior. It's time to understand that your life still goes on, that you are not only a mother, not just a figure in the background of someone else's story. The biggest mistake so many mothers make is believing that if they stop waiting, they're giving up. But letting go is not giving up. Letting go means freeing yourself from the weight you've carried for too long. To stop waiting doesn't mean to stop loving. It means to stop depending. It doesn't mean slamming the door shut. It means no longer pounding on it, hoping someone will finally open it. Ask yourself honestly, if you knew for certain your child would never change, would never soften, would never come closer, what would you do with your life? How would you spend your time? Where would you place your energy? What would you finally do for yourself? That is the key, that is the only answer that matters. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." If you keep focusing on what you lack, on what you're not receiving, you're sentencing yourself to a life of pain. But if you choose instead to focus on what you do have, on what you can still do, on the relationships that do nourish you, you'll have taken the most important step of all, choosing to live instead of waiting. And when you do that, when you stop placing your worth in someone else's hands, you'll discover something powerful. The respect you've been longing for may finally come, not because you asked for it, but because you embodied it. Because when a person stops begging, when they become whole within themselves, when they learn to enjoy their own company and claim what they deserve, the world begins to respond. The respect you were searching for will begin to arrive, not because you asked for it, but because you embodied it. Because when a person stops begging, when they become whole within themselves, when they learn to enjoy their own company and demand what they deserve, the world notices. And in that moment, perhaps your child will notice too. But by then, it won't matter as much, because you will have realized that the only person who truly needed to value you was yourself. If you understand that, then it's time to take the next step. We've reached the 8th point of this journey, where theory turns into action. Respect doesn't begin when you ask for it, when you wait patiently, or when you keep giving in. Hopes of being treated better. Respect begins when you set boundaries calmly, clearly, and unapologetically. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you start loving wisely. It's the difference between a mother who is present by choice and one who is present out of obligation. It means knowing that you are not required to answer every call, solve every problem, or offer yourself endlessly when what you receive in return is silence or indifference. It's knowing how to say no without guilt, without fear, and without explanation. It's understanding that if your child is upset because you're no longer overextending yourself, that's their problem, not yours. So ask yourself, when was the last time you said no without feeling bad? When was the last time you refused a request simply because you didn't want to? That's your challenge now. The next time your child acts as if your time or your energy is theirs by right, pause and ask, do I want to do this? Are they treating me with the respect I deserve? And if the answer is no, then simply don't do it. No drama, no anger, no guilt. Just affirm, I can't or I don't want to. At first you'll feel uncomfortable. They may react with frustration, guilt trips, or silence. But what happens afterward isn't the most important part. What matters is what happens inside you. The moment you realize the world didn't end because you said no, that you're still standing, still you will begin to awaken a powerful truth. You never needed to beg for love or approval. You needed only to respect yourself. Stoicism teaches us that we cannot control others, but we can always control our choices. So here's your choice now. Keep waiting for others to change, or start changing yourself. If you don't set boundaries today, tomorrow will look exactly the same. And if tomorrow stays the same, so will the next year and the one after that, until your last day. Are you going to keep living as a shadow in someone else's life, only called upon when it's convenient? Or will you finally step forward and pave your own path with the dignity of someone who knows their worth? Because at this point in your life, you don't have time to keep waiting. You've already seen what happens when you give endlessly. You've already discovered that love without boundaries becomes a burden. And now you understand, clearly, deeply, that the real change only begins when you stop asking for respect and start living it. So if you haven't yet drawn that line, ask yourself, what am I still afraid of? Because the only thing standing between you and the life you deserve is the moment you finally decide to take it. Excuses often come disguised as prudence. I don't want to fight. I don't want them to think I'm a bad mother. It's better to leave things as they are. But the truth behind those thoughts is fear. Fear of discomfort. Fear of confrontation. Fear of not knowing who you are if you stop being the one who always gives in. Because setting boundaries doesn't just change how others treat you. It changes how you see yourself. And that's terrifying, because it means you can no longer blame your child, fate, or society. It means everything, from this point forward, depends on you. But if you keep postponing that moment, waiting for a better time, it will never come. There is no perfect day to say enough. No sign from the heavens will arrive to tell you it's time to take your dignity back. The only thing that exists is the moment you decide you can't keep living this way. And if that moment isn't, now then when? Because every day you go without setting a boundary is another day you silently teach your child that it's okay to treat you this way. It's not their fault. It's the dynamic you've allowed. but that also means you can change it. If you decide today that you will no longer tolerate disrespect, no longer justify their neglect, no longer be available only when it suits them, something will break in the structure of that unbalanced relationship. Yes, there will be resistance, pushback, discomfort, even anger. But there will also be opportunity, the opportunity for your child, maybe for the first time in their life, to confront the consequences of their actions. Don't expect understanding or gratitude, not right away. Expect discomfort, but stay firm, don't give in. Prove with actions, not pleading, that you are no longer the same. And in time, they may begin to see you differently. They may realize their mother is not an endless resource, but a person with dignity. And maybe, just maybe, they'll begin to respect you. But even if they don't, even if they drift further away, what matters most is that you will have reclaimed your life. Because the respect you need most isn't your child's, it's your own. And if you don't give that to yourself first, no one else ever will. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't a comfortable conversation, but it's a necessary one. Living while waiting for respect from someone who never learned to give it is a kind of prison, and the only way out is a decision you must make. It doesn't matter how many times you've been told that a mother must endure everything, that love is unconditional sacrifice, that it's better to give in than risk the relationship. Those are chains disguised as advice. And every day you stay bound to them is another day wasted in a relationship where you are neither seen nor valued. But now you understand. Respect is not begged for. It is earned with the dignity of someone who knows their worth. And the only person who can start that change is you. Not everyone is ready to hear this. Some prefer to keep waiting, hoping things will change on their own. But you've made it to the end, and that means something inside you already knows. You can't keep living like this. You can't keep justifying, waiting, enduring. Your life cannot be reduced to what someone else decides to give you. And if you truly understand that, then say it out loud or write it in the comments. My respect is not negotiable. This is not a space for easy comfort. It's a community of those ready to face the truth and act on it. I'm Gabriel, and this is the Stoic Garden, where Stoicism isn't just philosophy, it's a way of life, a discipline rooted in strength, clarity, and the courage to change what's within your power. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, because too many people are still trapped, waiting for a respect that may never come. Don't let this conversation stop here. There's more to learn, more to awaken, and more to become. Watch another video and continue walking this path of strength and transformation. Because in the end, the only person who decides how the rest of your life will be is you.